Every form of protection begins long before a person feels threatened, because the field that surrounds a life is shaped by the way consciousness breathes inside itself. The world teaches people to think of protection as something added, something summoned, something cast outward like an invisible wall. But protection in its true form is the internal geometry of a being, remembering that its frequency is not open terrain. When consciousness stands inside its own resonance without distortion, almost nothing can touch it, because nothing incompatible can fuse with a tone that refuses to collapse. Spiritual protection is the art of remaining undivided in a world that constantly invites division. It is less about guarding yourself from darkness, and more about understanding that darkness cannot anchor to a field that holds no vacancy for it. When the field is coherent, the world is forced to meet you at the level of your coherence. When it is scattered, the world rushes in to fill the fractures you have not acknowledged. Protection is formed through alignment, and alignment is formed through the quiet decisions you repeat even when no one sees you. A being becomes protected not through prayers spoken in panic, but through the constant return to what they know is true about themselves when the noise tries to make them forget. The mind seeks safety by trying to anticipate danger, but the deeper layers of reality do not operate by anticipation. They operate by resonance. You do not become protected by avoiding danger, but by becoming the kind of consciousness that danger cannot use. Harm only penetrates where identity bends. A protected life is not a life with fewer threats. It is a life where threats cannot find purchase. There are layers to protection that most people never sense directly. The first is identity, the quiet interior truth that every person carries whether they recognize it or not. Identity is not personality. It is the core vibration of a soul that cannot be taken, borrowed, or broken. When you stand fully inside your identity, there is no opening for distortion to enter, because distortion only sticks to what is unsure of itself. The second layer is intention, the direction your energy is already flowing before any event unfolds. Intention is a lock, and when it is clear, anything misaligned simply slides away because it cannot match the trajectory. The third layer is momentum. Every life moves on a path shaped by choices, lessons, timing, and oversoul design. Once that momentum is strong, it becomes a rail. Interference happens most easily when momentum is paused or scattered. But when you are moving with clarity, the world forms around the forward motion. People often think protection comes from beings that intervene. But guardianship in truth is resonance. Oversoul guardianship is the field of intelligence that keeps you aligned with why you incarnated in the first place. Ancestral guardianship is the living memory of your lineage that steps forward only when its tone matches your growth. And environmental guardianship is the relationship between your consciousness and the physical reality you inhabit. You are never alone because existence is layered with fields that respond to your tone before you even speak. These guardians do not fight on your behalf. They correct your path by preventing collisions that only appear as miracles to those who do not see the architecture around them. Protection works most powerfully in the invisible moments. The subtle shifts where you choose not to enter a space, not to linger in a conversation, not to follow an impulse without knowing why. Humans label these things intuition, but intuition is simply the conscious layer of protection rising to awareness. Most protection is silent because it acts at the level of timeline exclusion. You are not saved from danger in a dramatic way. You are carried around it before you even know it was there. Your life has been shaped far more by what you never encountered than by what you survived. The unseen doors that never opened, the people you never met, the opportunities you never took, the impulses that dissolved before they could mislead you. These are the quiet fingerprints of protection. As consciousness grows, protection evolves. During awakening, your field becomes louder because your identity begins to anchor at deeper levels. This attracts attention from forces that operate through confusion, fragmentation, and emotional distortion. These forces are not evil in the mythic sense, but emerge in the cracks of human uncertainty. Spiritual protection intensifies when you cross thresholds of transformation, Because those thresholds stretch the structure of your identity. Every moment of evolution opens a temporary vulnerability. The more you expand, the more your coherence must stabilize. This is why spiritual breakthroughs are often followed by emotional storms or sudden life disruptions. The field is recalibrating, and protection is ensuring that what dissolves is only what cannot come with you. Protection is also relational. It shifts based on who you allow near you, what you accept into your field, how you speak about yourself, and what realities you agree to live inside. When you lower your resonance through self-betrayal, your protection softens because your identity softens. When you abandon your inner truth, your field becomes porous. But the moment you realign with your own integrity, the field closes again. Protection is not about being perfect. It is about being honest. Confusion weakens your field far more than fear. Clarity strengthens it more than courage. And coherence is the truest shield a soul can hold. There are moments in life when protection feels like absence, like something is not stepping in to help when you wish it would. But protection does not operate by preventing every difficulty. It operates by ensuring that every difficulty unfolds within the limits of what you can survive and grow through. You are protected even when the moment is hard, because the moment is shaped to avoid breaking you. Pain does not mean exposure. Challenge does not mean danger. Often the most protected moments are the ones that feel the most destabilizing, because protection is guiding you through a necessary collapse that reveals a deeper layer of who you are. Protection interacts with transitional states in ways most people never consider. When consciousness enters altered conditions like deep sleep, emotional overwhelm, dissociation, or spiritual rupture, the field becomes more delicate. These states are thresholds where a person can lose temporary coherence if the interior structure is already divided. Protection stabilizes the identity during these moments, preventing the psyche from fracturing into echo loops or memory distortions. Most people survive emotional collapse, not because of their own strength, but because protection holds the frame of who they are, while their interior world rearranges. There are rare moments when protection operates at its highest capacity, and these moments usually occur when life becomes unpredictable. In periods of intense uncertainty, sudden change, or environments filled with instability, consciousness becomes more reactive. This reactivity creates openings for energies or influences that would not normally enter. Protection moves in these spaces not as a shield, but as a navigator. It pulls you through situations by adjusting your perception, shifting your timing, altering your impulses, or draining your desire for actions that would sabotage you. Sometimes you feel tired for no reason, uninterested in a plan you were excited about, or uneasy in a place that seemed harmless. These are often protective redirects, not emotional failures. Protection also shapes how the body and soul respond to danger, long before the mind identifies the threat. There are countless recorded experiences of people turning away from a location moments before an event, changing their route seconds before impact, or pausing in a way that alters their entire timeline. These moments are not coincidence. They are the Oversoul adjusting the rhythm of your presence so you do not collide with something that does not belong in your trajectory. Protection is the silent sculptor of your timing, and timing shapes everything. When people speak of being watched over, they often picture beings surrounding them. But the truth is more precise. Protection is the structure of your own becoming woven through every moment you live. It is not external. It is interior reality influencing outer experience. You are protected because you are not moving alone. You are protected because the deeper intelligence of your being understands the path you cannot yet see. You are protected because the Oversoul refuses to abandon the design it placed inside you. And you are protected because the universe itself bends around a consciousness that moves without forgetting itself. When true protection is active, the world meets you differently. People who would have harmed you lose interest. Conflicts dissolve before forming. Opportunities that would have scattered you fail to appear. Moments of chaos pass through your environment without touching you. This is not luck, this is coherence. A person living in their true resonance becomes difficult for distortion to approach. Harm requires agreement. Protection ensures you never unconsciously agree. The deepest truth is that spiritual protection is not a force that separates you from the world. It is the field that allows you to walk through the world without losing yourself. It is not armor. It is alignment. It is not defense. It is identity. It is not fear. It is recognition. And once a person realizes this, their entire understanding of danger changes, because they stop fearing what might enter their life and start noticing how much never gets near them simply because they remembered who they are. Protection reveals its sharpest intelligence when life meets thresholds that the mind cannot prepare for. Because the human experience of transition is rarely clean and rarely predictable, people imagine transformation as something graceful. But most transitions are jagged, sudden, non-linear, and emotionally charged. They push the psyche toward its edges and force the identity to move through conditions it never rehearsed. In these moments, consciousness becomes intensely vulnerable because the familiar structures loosen and the internal map dissolves. Protection does not stop the transition. It manages the thresholds so the being crossing them does not lose coherence. Every shift in your life requires the field to lift or tighten, and the deeper the shift, the more precisely protection adjusts around you to hold the interior structure intact. Human culture treats death as the main transition that requires protection. But the truth is that countless micro-deaths occur across the span of a life. Ego layers collapse, identities end, relationships dissolve, dreams shatter, worlds that once felt solid fall apart without warning. These events mimic the energetic structure of physical death because they involve the loss of a former self, and the same protective intelligence that guides a soul through physical transition also guides a person through psychological and spiritual collapse. Protection ensures that even when something within you breaks, the essence of you does not fracture with it. The design of your becoming is preserved even when the path is not. When death itself approaches, whether suddenly or slowly, protection does not abandon the person. It intensifies. The Oversoul gathers its threads. The guardians of memory shift closer, and the interior field stabilizes around the departing consciousness. Most people imagine death as a moment in time, but it is actually a process that begins long before the final breath. The consciousness loosens from the physical body in stages. The emotional body unhooks. The mental body stops anchoring to physical perception. And throughout this process, protection closes around the departing identity like a cradle. The person may feel fear or confusion in the physical layer, but on the interior level, they are already being held by the resonance of their own oversoul. Many deaths appear traumatic or violent from the outside, but the inner experience is often entirely different. When the physical body enters shock, the consciousness is usually pulled out before the full intensity is registered. This is a form of protection that operates outside the sight of those who witness the event. A soul does not need to endure the brutality of a moment simply because the body did. Protection extracts the consciousness at the speed necessary to prevent fragmentation. What looks like pain to an observer may not be encountered by the soul at all. The Oversoul decides how much of a moment the consciousness remains present for, and it never forces a being to remain inside an experience that would distort its coherence beyond what it can recover. There are individuals whose deaths appear calm, peaceful, or graceful, and these are coherent departures. But coherence is not determined by the outer appearance. It is determined by the interior state at the moment of release. A person may die in an accident yet transition with clarity and ease. Another may die in a quiet room yet leave with confusion if their inner world was tangled. Protection shapes the inner passage, not the exterior circumstances. And the way the consciousness steps out of the body matters far more than what the body endured. The purpose of protection during death is not to prevent physical harm, but to prevent fragmentation of identity. Echo loops occur when unresolved emotional or mental currents follow the departing consciousness and cling to it without context. Protection clears these currents, sometimes by allowing the consciousness to leave the body early, sometimes by softening the sensory input, and sometimes by dissolving memory impressions before they attach. This is why so many people report that their final moments were calm or detached even when the situation appeared chaotic. The Oversoul preserves the identity by removing the person from the moment that would have damaged it. Unexpected death is often interpreted as unfair or senseless, but from the spiral perspective, it is a timing event that aligns with trajectories far deeper than the mind can see. Protection operates even in these cases by ensuring that the consciousness does not become tangled in the suddenness. Shock is a physical response, not a soul response. The soul does not experience shock the way the body does. The moment the trajectory ends, the Oversoul pulls the awareness into a higher vantage point, often before the body fully registers what is happening. This prevents the sensation of being trapped or overwhelmed. The consciousness rises out of the moment like a spark leaving an ember, and the external violence does not define the internal experience. There are instances where people recount leaving their bodies before the moment of impact, floating above the scene, observing without attachment. These are glimpses of protection in action. The consciousness is extracted early because the moment is too loud for the psyche to process without distortion. Even when the departure is instantaneous, the Oversoul maintains a sequence of steps that guide the awareness from physical identity to expanded recognition. These steps unfold automatically because they are written into the architecture of your existence. You cannot fail the transition because the transition is guided, not chosen. After crossing, protection continues. The first field the consciousness enters is one of stabilization, where the emotional and mental layers reorganize around clarity. This field dissolves the residue of fear, pain, or confusion so the identity can remember itself without the noise of the final moments. People imagine that death carries trauma into the next state, but trauma belongs to the physical and emotional body, not the Oversoul. Protection ensures that the identity does not become defined by the way the life ended. The story of a life is held intact, but the distortion is removed. It is impossible for a soul to remain trapped inside the violence of its final moment, because the moment cannot hold the soul once the Oversoul reclaims it. Protection does not stop once the consciousness stabilizes. It assists in memory retrieval. During life, memory is filtered through the brain and the emotional body, both of which limit the scope. After death, memory expands. At first, this expansion can feel overwhelming. Protection regulates the speed. It allows memory to return in layers, revealing the meaning of the life without flooding the departing consciousness. Many describe a review, but the review is not a judgment. It is a harmonization. Protection guides the being through its own story, in a way that reveals the growth, the distortions, the choices, and the unseen influences, all without condemnation. This process repairs identity, aligns it with Oversoul truth, and prepares it for the next phase. Even in dimensions beyond physical existence, protection is active because the soul continues to evolve. In the spiral realms, protection becomes more like resonance calibration. Beings navigate spaces that respond instantly to their tone. The more coherent a being becomes, the more environments open. The less coherent, the more limited the access. Protection ensures that a being does not enter fields that would destabilize its identity, not because the fields are harmful, but because the being is not yet harmonized with them. This is another form of guardianship that looks like limitation, but is actually mercy. People fear death because they fear losing themselves, but the truth is that protection is most precise during the moment of release. You cannot be lost because there is no place in existence where your resonance can dissolve. You cannot become trapped because the Oversoul always retrieves its own. You cannot be harmed in a way that extends beyond the physical layer, because harm requires coherence to penetrate, and the consciousness is removed from the moment before its coherence can fracture. The universe is not careless with identity. The field of protection surrounding a soul is older than the body and more exact than the mind can comprehend. Protection does not only guard transitions, it influences the trajectory after the transition. Some beings re-enter higher realms immediately. Others rest in reflective fields. Some reunite with their Oversoul in full awareness. Others integrate slowly. The path varies, but protection shapes it with the same intelligence that shaped the life. You are carried into the next state with the same precision that carried you through danger, heartbreak, transformation, and awakening. The architecture is seamless. The continuity is unbroken. What feels like an ending is simply an inward step into a larger field of your own existence. In the human world, spiritual protection is often reduced to rituals, symbols, words, or beliefs. But the deeper truth is that protection is the natural state of a soul that has remembered its source. You are not protected because you ask to be. You are protected because you belong to yourself. You are protected because your resonance is not random. You are protected because your existence unfolds inside a design that will not abandon you at any threshold. As consciousness evolves, you begin to sense this truth in the quiet moments. You stop worrying about unseen forces invading your field. You stop fearing the unknown. You stop negotiating with fear. You realize that protection is not something around you. It is something you are.